Yeah, there's some you just wouldn't work for. I mean,
100%.
Yeah. Okay. I would have guessed that. Steve, hello.
Yeah, Hank, great show.
Thanks.
Listen, I just recently got into the business of owning, and actually the horse I have is the cheap claimer. And what I wanted to ask your guests were, is it conceivable for them to improve? And I mean, we've drawn some bad posts in the last few weeks. In fact, we're going, I think Sunday night, and we're drawing the outside again. And what I wanted to ask you was, I mean, I've heard a lot of things now, but I mean, does the post mean that much? And also, can they improve?
Would you have preferred for Friday night to have drawn anywhere other than you did?
No, I'm really very happy being in the middle of the pack because I can dictate a little bit more what I want to do than having the outside where I'm forced for this kind of money and with trailers in the race to leave. And with having the inside, you got to leave out of there pretty good to hold your position, so you don't want to get shuffled too far back. So I was very happy with the 5. And as far as your question is concerned, you know, the post positions in harness racing is very, very important, especially on a 5/8 mile track, because you go into the first turn much faster than you do on a mile track, and you want to be in contention at the top of the stretch. Where at the Meadowlands on a mile track, you have a quarter of a mile to come home. So I think you just got to hang in there, and hopefully your horse will draw the inside, and I think you'll see I think you'll be very happy.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, we got to get our last break into this hour. We'll wrap up this hour with the Silvermans, and Neil Rogers is going to stick around for a while. And did you call Flores?
It's just a joke.
Okay.
You and I need it like a hole in the head. Get out of here.
Okay, we'll be back.
Richie and I disagree. Let's compare radio stations in the morning. Station A gets their weather forecast from a cable television station in Georgia. Station B gets their weather information from South Florida's most respected meteorologist, Bob Soper. Station A reports traffic tie-ups from 1 airplane. Station B reports tie-ups from aboard 3 airplanes. Station A brings you sports news from... Station B has Rick Weaver, Sonny Hirsch, Joe Zagacki, Jim Mandich, Hank Goldberg. The clear choice, Station B, 610 WIOD. South Florida's news, traffic, and weather station. News Talk Radio, 610 WIOD. Skywatch 610 traffic reports mean we'll get you moving and keep you going when you hit the South Florida highways. Exclusively on News Talk Radio, 610 WIOD. Now back to Goldberg at Night with your host, Hank Goldberg.
If the public don't want to see garbage horses, right?
We just keep talking here. The show comes back on. It doesn't matter. Which goes to show you we have great camaraderie here. We have about 2 minutes left in this hour. And, okay, I got one question there about from Pete in Fort Lauderdale. Go ahead.
How you doing, Hank?
All right.
I'm really enjoying this show. A big racing fan. Yes, a question for your guests. In past years at Pompano, they had used the single shaft sulky, which I hear has now been outlawed. And that used to get that information in the program. Now I hear of this equalizer bike. And this is not in the program when horses are using this equipment. A comment on that.
They're not using it here this year. You're talking about the modified sulky?
The equalizer.
Yeah, yeah, they're using it. I don't. I personally, myself, don't put too much credence into that bike personally. I believe the other bike, the bike is what they called it, I believe did help some horses, especially on the turns and out on the front end, which I believe they did put in the program last year or the year before.
Yes, but not this equalizer bike you don't deem too significant.
Personally, no.
Okay.
One more question.
Quick.
As far as horses getting a trip around the track, I haven't got a program here, but I don't believe Die Laughing's been around Pompano yet.
No, this will be his first time racing here at Pompano. He's trained over the racetrack, and he handled it well.
You didn't think it was important to give him a prep race?
Well, we couldn't. No, we would. No, there was none, and we would have liked to. But you know, the Governor's Cup was 13 days before this race on Friday.
But when you're dealing with a champion like this, Lexington, Rosecroft, Meadowlands, Garden State, Pompano, a champion races on any track,
that
any
doesn't
size.
seem to affect him.
And he does adapt very well.
Well, listen, I want to thank you both for coming down here and wish you the best on Friday. And I'm glad Neil was here for this part of the show, too. Well, Neil's going to stay a little while longer because I couldn't have gotten through this without you because your knowledge of the game is phenomenal. Phenomenal.
But I'm no Stan Bergstein. And it was a great honor to meet him, by the way, at Breeders' Crown Night.
But you have a great knowledge of the game.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
And I've paid for it, believe me, Jerry.
I believe you.
Yeah, for sure. Richie and Jerry Silverman have been our guests. Die Laughing takes them on Friday night at Pompano. There'll be 4 2-year-old races up there. If my experience of the Breeders' Crown a few weeks ago is any indication, you'll have a great time. Go up there and see it. Thank you.
Thank you.
South Florida's news, traffic, and weather station. News Talk Radio 610 WIOD. Miami, Fort Lauderdale.
Good evening. I'm Stephanie Bromfield in the 610 WIOD News Center. The temperature at 9 o'clock, 79 degrees. Here's WIOD's Bob Soper.
We're going to start improving our chances of rain tonight, tomorrow, and especially on Friday. The complete forecast in a couple of minutes.
The White House says President Bush has not decided whether to call a special session of Congress to consider the Persian Gulf crisis. But Senate Minority Leader Bob Dole says the odds are better than 50-50 that there will be a special session next month. A delegation of U.S. lawmakers is wrapping up a visit to Saudi Arabia with a warning for Iraq's Saddam Hussein. They say war would be suicide for Saddam, and they say that's the message behind a resolution that comes before the UN Security Council tomorrow. A new study claims that 1 in 500 U.S. college students is infected with the AIDS virus. The Centers for Disease Control predicts that further spread of the disease is likely on campuses unless students change their sex habits. More than 100 people gathered in Miami Beach to pay their final respects to a young boy they do not know. WIOD's Melissa Conti reports.
It's been almost a month since the little boy was found dead, his body bruised and beaten. Yet his identity remains a mystery. Miami Beach Mayor Alex Dowd urged anyone with information to notify the authorities.
Assist our police, assist our chief in finding the people that brutalized this child, that hurt this child, and that killed this child.
Investigators describe the boy as Caucasian with brown eyes and brown wavy hair. He weighs 17 pounds and is between 1.5 and 4 years old. Melissa Conti, News Talk Radio 610 WIOD.
Authorities are looking for 3 men today after the Coast Guard found 630 pounds of cocaine on their 32-foot fishing boat. Petty Officer Alex Warden says the drugs were found in Ala Mirada in the vessel's fuel tank during a routine search. But for some unexplained reason, the men were let go before the drugs were found.
The information I have was the 3 people who were on board the boat were released prior to this discovery of the drugs, and they have not been located yet. Federal authorities are out searching for them.
Warden says a boarding at sea and a dock turned up nothing, so the men were released. But a search of the boat's fuel tank this morning turned up the drugs. A bank robber who has grown more ornery with age is working in South Florida again. Robert Braim robbed more than 30 banks in Broward in the mid-'80s. He escaped from a Florida jail this year, and the FBI's Paul Miller reports that when he held up a savings and loan in Coral Springs today, his nickname disappeared.
He was known as a gentleman bandit because when he used to rob banks, he acted as a gentleman in the sense that he was polite. But now he's gotten vicious and threatened the lives of the people in the bank, and he did obtain a substantial sum of money.
Braim is 36 years old, clean-shaven, 5 feet 9, 160 pounds, and is considered extremely dangerous. 610 WIOD News Center time, 9:03. Traffic and weather next.
Hi, this is Joel Valinsky, Director of Broward County Transit. Our heavy traffic, which increases tremendously during the tourist season, plus the Middle East crisis causing gasoline prices to escalate, are collectively making an alternative to driving very attractive to a lot of people. One alternative is the BCT.
If everyone in Broward County took the BCT to and from work just 1 day a week for a month, almost 2.5 million car trips would not be on the road. Over 17.5 million miles of congested traffic would be eliminated, plus over $1 million in fuel would be saved. Additionally, 763 tons of poisonous emissions would be eliminated from the air we breathe. We challenge you to try your bus system and save. Call BCT and ask for a free I'm Part of the Solution packet. That's BCT 357-8400.
Take it easy, take the BCT. Take it easy, take the BCT.
Now, Skywatch 610 traffic. Here's Ileana Garcia.
Thank you, Stephanie. This traffic update is service of Bell South Mobility. No traffic accidents reported at this time in Dade or Broward County, but very important, some construction delays. you might want to watch out for in Broward. Between Prospect and Powerline Road at 95, one lane has been shut down in each direction. Also, if you're traveling eastbound or westbound on Sunrise Boulevard at 95, 2 lanes have been shut down there. Bell South Mobility was part of the company that developed cellular car phone technology, so when shopping for a car phone, be sure to look for the sign with the bell symbol, or call 1-800-225-8751. I'm Ileana Garcia with Skywatch 610 WIOD.
Now from the WIOD Weather Center, here's Bob Soper.
We'll see some scattered showers along with some scattered clouds tonight, but not a whole lot of rain. Overnight lows from the low 70s inland to about 75 on the beaches. Then during the day tomorrow, we'll see a mixture of sunshine and clouds, slightly better chance of rain. High temperatures, 81 on the beaches, into the mid-80s everywhere else. Tonight, small craft advisory continues, but by tomorrow, wind should be east to southeast at 15 knots. Seas should be 3 to 5 feet by tomorrow, and bay waters a moderate chop. From the Weather Center, I'm Channel 7 meteorologist Bob Soper, News Talk Radio 610 WIOD.
At 9:05, the temperature in South Florida is 79 degrees. Next news update at 10 o'clock, bulletins at once. I'm Stephanie Bromfield for South Florida's news, traffic, and weather station, News Talk Radio 610 WIOD.
News Talk Radio 610 WIOD presents Goldberg at Night with host Hank Goldberg. To get in touch and talk with Hank and his guest tonight, dial 751 WIOD from Dade. In Broward County, it's 524 WIOD. The Palm Beaches dial 655 WIOD. And remember, if you're a Bell South Mobility car phone customer, it's a free call at Star IOD. Now, here's the host of Goldberg at Night, Hank Goldberg, on News Talk Radio 610 WIOD.
It's post time for the 6th Breeders' Cup Classic.
You got a picture from the Band of Feathers?
Blushing John is in line. Sunday Silence.
Yes, I have.
The Derby and Preakness winner will move into post position number 8. Poised in the gate, Belmont winner, Easy Goer in post position 1. They're standing in line, and they're off. Sunday Silence breaks alertly. Easy Goer was off a step slow toward the inside. Slew City Slew, Blushing John, and Present Value. And they're passing us now for the first time. Slew City Slew is out to take the early lead now, and he's opened up a quick lead here of 2.5 lengths. Blushing John is second on the outside. Present Value is third. Sunday Silence is rating in 4th position. He's 6 lengths off the lead. Me Selecto is 7th. 4 lengths back to Easy Goer. He is 10 lengths off the lead of Slew City Slew as they move into the first turn, and the trailers are Crypto Clearance and Western Playboy. Slew City Slew, and he zipped the opening quarter in 22 and 2/5 seconds. A brazen display of early speed in this 1.25 mile classic. Blushing John is tracking him as they make their way on to the backstretch now. Sunday Silence poised on the outside third. Present Value to his inside. Then Me Selecto. Easy Goer is yet to do his best running. He is still 9 lengths off the lead of Slew City Slew. He's 5 lengths behind Sunday Silence, and now he's beginning to roll. They've run a half mile in 46 and 1/5 seconds. Slew City Slew weakening on the lead. Blushing John has been tracking him out of the way. Sunday Silence bracing for the oncoming power of Easy Goer, who's right at his neck, and the stage is set with 3 furlongs to run in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Blushing John taking the lead, 3/8 of a mile out. It's Blushing John in front. Sunday Silence on the outside, gearing up now. He's left Easy Goer 2.5 lengths behind. They're coming to the top of the stretch, and Blushing John is under a hand rod. He leads by 1.5 lengths. Sunday Silence, a threatening presence on the outside. Easy Goer is set down, and he's put to a fierce drive. Coming to the final furlong. Sunday Silence surges to the front. Blushing John trying to fight back. Easy Goer with one final acceleration, and Sunday Silence holds on, and he wins by a desperate neck. Easy Goer was too late. Not enough.
Not enough. Too much pate.
Come on, get out of there. The better horse won. Come on. Greatest race caller in the world.
You like our producer?
Hey, I'm not going to argue with them because they're both Neelys, okay? Dave Johnson and Tom Durkin.
Yeah.
They're both friends of mine, and they're both great, but I think Dave would even agree that Durkin has risen to the top. He's just... Dave is great, too. Dave is tremendous, but he's got too much money, you know.
I was with Durkin a couple of years ago after the Eclipse Awards in New York at the Waldorf, and we met Lauren Hutton's sister. I don't know how this happened, But she looked just like her sister, you know. And there's Durkin, and they're getting to be great friends. And of course, I'm just there, you know, enjoying it. Next thing I know, I look over at Durkin. He's asleep at the bar. He is a piece of work, you know.
Yeah.
Great guy, just a
Terrific.
great guy, bright.
Terrific.
Really. Oh, you
He
can tell by his
started
fall.
over in Tampa Bay Downs.
That's right.
Came over here, did Hialeah for a couple of years, I think, and has risen to the top so fast, and now he's just in a class by himself. He's terrific.
Steinbrenner. George Steinbrenner hired him at Tampa when he owned the track.
Did Alan Finkelson pay you to say that?
No.
Something good
No,
about George?
Craig Dolch, as a matter of fact, Craig Dolch, who writes for the Palm Beach paper, Craig was the publicity guy over there. In fact, it was an amazing story. When that track opened, Craig was just out of school, and he had gotten a job there through Tom McEwen, who was the sports editor of the Tampa Tribune. And he went to work for, I forget who the PR guy was, but Eddie McKenzie, who used to be at Gulfstream, was the general manager. Eddie's brother-in-law printed the programs. Yeah, well, here's how brief. It was opening day.
Yeah, very briefly.
Eddie's brother-in-law was printing the programs. They didn't arrive until the fifth race. Eddie was fired. The publicity guy went with him. Craig Dolch, right out of college, found himself as the publicity person. And Durkin was also working there at the same time, and they became great friends. And then, of course, one of the smarter things that John Brunetti did, and since his tenure at Hialeah, was to bring Durkin here, and that's where he got the exposure. He's just a fabulous race caller. You don't like Trevor Denman, huh?
At all.
I got a guy at Hollywood Park who's worse.
I've heard him.
The
With
guy
that
from
same kind of
Australia.
Australian,
Well,
I don't want to
Trevor's
hear that.
from South Africa.
Yeah, let them both go back. Stick them in the
guy's
desert.
from Australia.
No.
So, Neil, how are you?
That was great. These guys were excellent, and I'm just delighted that you had them on, because one thing that really bugs me, and you included, people live down here for years, and you talk about Pompano Park. They say, you know, I've never been up there.
Yeah.
And it's not just Pompano, but it's like a lot of different things. And if you go to any of the pari-mutuels, the problem in this town, I was telling this to Kenny Dunn at Calder yesterday, the core of the people who go are, death is the median age. I mean, old. And, you know, don't knock
Did you
it
eat
there.
lunch in a turf club yesterday?
Yes, sir.
Did you see what's in there? I mean, the people who were in the turf club out there.
I thought I was at Leva Weinstein.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, your buddy, I think, was there drumming up business. But, sorry, Steve, it's just a joke. But seriously, they've got to get, you know, we fought for years. Florida's always way behind it. Like you say, these people in charge of the pari-mutuels, they wouldn't know a horse from a dog. And we finally get the family bill, or the miners bill, which the other states have had for years. In fact, Alan Finkelson from Pompano, when he was the PR guy at Monticello years ago, started the first thing where they had an arcade for the kids, and they had a nursery, and people could come and bring the whole family, and the kids, they could, you know, shovel them off, know they were getting taken care of, and the older kids, they had games to play, which Kenny Dunn, by the way, is going to do at Calder. He's going to do some good things out there.
What is he going to do with kids?
They're going to have an arcade. They're going to have, like, games. They're going to have, you know, again, these are in the planning stages, but they're going to do something. They're going to do a thing like the breakfast at Belmont thing they do there in the morning.
They're not going to do something drastic like become customer-friendly out there.
Yes, they sure are. Which is why I insist to you that Kenny No is still there, but not in the same position he used to be. Believe me, they're going to. That racing surface at Calder is going to go. But my point that I really got to make is, if people would go out once and see what beautiful facilities we got, like Pompano Park. To me, and I've been, you know, you and I have been at every track in the world practically. Pompano is one of the most beautiful harness tracks in America. It's great. The food is magnificent. The clubhouse is sensational. It's a comfortable place to go. And the same with, you know, we got Gulfstream, we got, unfortunately,
much nicer than Los Alamitos.
Yeah, I'm sure
I've been
it is.
there. That's a barn.
And if these people would get off their ass and go somewhere, because, you know, during the break, Jerry Silverman was talking about the fact that people don't want to go and see $2,000 purses and $4,000 claimers. And that's true, but it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. In other words, if people go and put that money in, you know, and you get a good handle, then you're going to get bigger purses. And with the bigger purses comes a better quality of horsemen and better races. And it's just a self-fulfilling situation. You know, and the same thing with thoroughbred racing. We get the great racing in the wintertime at Gulfstream, and the summertime we get all our 2-year-olds from Ocala. We got a lot of cheap, you know, L's Magic douchebag again in Search for Sandy. And if people in this town, and again, they don't have to go out and be big gamblers, but if they go out and have a good time and take the family out and see what it's all about, they'd have a hell of a time.
You remember your first experience at a racetrack?
I sure do.
I wrote about mine in the
Not only do I remember the first experience, I don't know just what detail you remember, I can remember harness races from years ago that would just boggle your mind.
You went to harness racing
I was
before you
going to
went
school,
Flats?
yeah, Michigan State. And a lot of my friends were from Detroit, of course, and into the track. We went to Hazel Park in Detroit. The first race, this is harness racing, first race I bet on the 9-horse Eldora Jenko, driven by Don McElmurray. I bet $2 to show. The horse won the race, which is incredible. It was the favorite, paid $2.60 to show. And that was it. I was hooked from that moment on. I think I cashed about 6 tickets.
Heavenly Girl, Steve Brooks. That was my first winner.
Comes the 7th race now. I've cashed about 6 times, betting show bets, place bets. My roommate in college says to me, and he's from New York, Mr. Hotshot from Tenafly, New Jersey, of course, and he says, boy, I think you really know something. He starts betting with me. Well, needless to say, I never cashed a ticket the last 4 races, which showed you how much I knew.
See, I won the first time I went. The first time I went, I hit the daily double.
And you know why you win? Because you know nothing.
Yeah.
The more you know, the more dangerous you are.
And the more information you get.
Oh,
well, I found that out with you at the Breeders' Crown. All the tipsters coming by the table.
Including that horse that's still running out there with Dwayne Miner, who couldn't drive his finger up his nose. Excuse me, Dwayne, but it's just my comment.
But I've seen people who are very sharp handicappers who will listen to anybody. You know, somebody comes up.
Oh, that's me. I have no sales resistance at anything. I'll go out and buy a car in 5 minutes, and the same at the track. Somebody says, guy come up to me at Calder last time, not yesterday, but the last time I was there previously. And he says, a couple of weeks ago, he says, Neil, he says, I came out here to bet $250 on this horse. I forget the name of the horse. It's a horse that had been off for a few months. And, of course, you know you never bet a horse the first time back. He said $500 the guy gave him to come out and bet it. He says, I'm going to plunge my brains out. The horse is ready. And he had the credentials from last year. I mean, if the horse was ready to win the race. He's 6-1 in the morning line. He's 3-1, 7-2. They're betting him, right? Goes off 9-2. Plunge my brains out. The horse comes flying out of the gate, ran about a 16th of a mile. That's it. Puked his guts out. Nowhere to be found.
Neil, you've done everything there is to do in this radio business. I mean, except do a network show, which I'm sure you've had the opportunity to do. You just don't seem to want to do that right now. I'm starting a nighttime show here. What advice do you have for me?
Well, it's too late for you to say get out of the business. That's my advice for everybody else. What advice do I have for you?
Yeah.
You don't need any advice because you know everybody. That's the one great. When they told me you were going to be on at night, and I'm not here to tinkle on you.
No, I'm not
looking
looking for that.
But I'm just because it'll sound like that. But when they said Hank is going to do the nights, I said, geez, why didn't so? Because I sure didn't think of it. Why didn't somebody think of that sooner? Because you know everybody, not just in sports, and that's the one thing. And we talked about this with Joe in the switch between sports talk. The last thing we need is 5 hours of sports talk. Even though you do talk a lot of sports, I don't think the public wants 5 hours of the sports talk show. They want you. They want what you do and the people you know. And I think that's the way it's evolving. And I think that's what you can do, what you're going to do.
Stay away from issues, right?
Well,
do you mean that when you get on the air and you talk about the fact that, and you did it for so long?
Waste of time. Yeah. Waste of time.
Because of the people down here? Or
no, not just down
else?
Here, in the country, in the whole country. Look at the ratings on all the WLS in Chicago when all talk, they're in the toilet. CAU in Philadelphia, they were all talk all of a sudden in the middle of the day. One day, a couple of months ago, they pulled a plug, they're all music. ABC in New York. Sorry to say that for your board op, who's a refugee from there.
Yeah.
But again, their numbers are pathetic. People are not, for the most part, interested. Now, we can sit here and debate, which I used to do, and get frustrated and say, well, you ought to care about this and you ought to vote. They don't. You know the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So you can either try to force feed what you think they should care about, which they don't, which means you're going to fail, or you can give them a good time and be entertaining and interesting, which is what they want.
So if you look at your career down here and the things that you've done in broadcasting since you've been in this market, when you reflect on your career when it's over, what would be your proudest achievement, you think, or what is it that you would look back on and say, those were the days? Would it be the times when you were campaigning for things, attacking things, or the times where you sat here and
just... You can't do that because it depends on the times. In other words, when I was on at night at WNWS and had 10 and 11 shares, which is, remarkable, that was great. But, a lot of those people were old demographics. Not all of them. We had pretty decent demographics, but a tremendous number of 65 plus. Well, there's nothing wrong with those people, but a lot of them, it was like a babysitting service. It was just something for them to do. and to hear the voice on the radio or whatever. And it's not rewarding because you like the story about Marvin Dunn, who's a great guy and a good friend of mine, great, brilliant guy, doctor of psychology and doctor of whatever his degrees are at FIU. Well, he's not a medical doctor, and I brought him in one night. We sat down and talked for an hour about the black community, about social problems, this and that. And the first call is some old geezer who calls, Dr. Dunn, I have blue lips. Can you suggest something? Because he heard doctor. See, so that's the magic word. Well, that's really rewarding, okay? That's like the Feldine stories I tell. Richard Tyson, who's an MD, and comes on one night talking about his cocaine problem. He had gone through, he lost his medical practice, lost his wife, his family, had gone through this gut-wrenching thing and made a comeback. He came back, he was clean, he was putting his life back together. We go through the first hour, we go through this whole life story, Dr. Tyson, okay? Phone lines start lighting up. First call. Lady, probably post-death, calls in. Hello, Dr. Tyson. I'm taking Feldine. What can you tell me about Feldine? Well, who the hell cares about what drugs you're taking, lady? This guy's just gone through the most incredible story about, that's what we're talking about cocaine and drug addiction. She wants to know, she wants free medical advice. What could he tell her about Feldine? And when you do years of that, to go back to your question, to me, the thing that I've had going is that I can feel the pulse of the public, which sometimes in this town, it's not easy to feel the pulse because it ain't there. But when people are fed up with something. And for 2 years at INZ, I kept begging them, put me on in the daytime. You're doing this all news. You're getting like ones and twos. You have no audience there. You're reading the same crappy news over there. This market just isn't really big enough to sustain an all-news operation. It ain't New York. It ain't L.A., okay? And they finally put me on in the daytime. And a couple of months, I'm sitting there, and I'm doing my usual routine and bringing in the boring guests, the politicians, and the same 10 guests who have been on every show. Because, again, it ain't New York. You don't have the varieties, the kind of people you get if in a really major market. This is, somebody stole from me as a Bush League town. I think somebody once said that. But
I stole it?
Great minds work alike. We said it simultaneously. And so one day I came in and I said, I'm sick of this. It's just, if I'm sick of it, how does the audience feel, In the first couple of months, I've been on part of the fall book, and they had gone at like a 2, and I had a 4, which was okay. It was a big improvement. Biggest number INZ had at midday in a long time. And I said, hey, I'm going to have a good time. I'm canceling all the guests, because let's face it, and again, you're doing a different kind of a show, but if you're doing a show in midday or in afternoon drive, you're having guest time. Let's say the guest is going to talk about baseball cards, just to pick a topic out of the air, okay? I don't want to rub anybody in the wrong way.
Yeah, to pick that.
How many people in the audience care about baseball cards? Let's say 2%. Well, what are the odds that all 2% are listening to you at that moment? Very slim. So maybe half of those potential people might tune in because they're in. Well, that means you've driven away 99% of the potential audience because it's a very narrow thing. Authors, again, what you say you don't want to do authors, and I don't blame you because they're, first of all, peddling a book, and whatever the particular topic is, again, fraction of the audience is interested in that topic. The other 70-80%, they hear whatever the topic is, topic A, topic B, whatever, they don't care about it, so they're gone. And that's why I almost never have guests. I have Tom Jicka on. I'll have Bill Cosford on once in a while. I don't have a lot of guests anymore because most of them, A, are in this market, are boring, and B, they blow out, 60, 70, 80% of the potential audience.
You going to take a break? Okay, we'll be back. Neil Rogers is with us, and we'll be here for a while. I want to ask you a few more things.
But let's get back to Pompano, though, too, because I want to plug that thing we're doing Wednesday. It's going to be a real exciting
we'll do that
thing.
right after this.
Stay tuned for another news update from the 610 WIOD News Center coming up at the conclusion of this hour. Now, let's get back to Goldberg at Night with your host, Hank Goldberg, on News Talk Radio, 610 WIOD.
A couple of things I want to talk to you about. One is, you've got
Let's do this
thing
first.
next Wednesday, right?
Let's do it first, because, and I got to say, it's gratifying that we get some calls on harness racing now, because all those years when Alan and I used to do all those shows on it, forget it, nothing. We get a couple of Alan's old relatives from the Catskills. It is on the rise, and thank goodness people are starting to get in. It's a great sport. Anyway, this Wednesday night, we have a promotion, WIOD night, at Pompano Park. And everybody who comes out Wednesday night is going to get a package. Everybody comes to the track. It's going to have an honorary owner's admission pass that gives free clubhouse admission on nights when the WIOD horse is going to be running, okay, on those nights only, which I'll get to, and an owner's certificate, a registration card. All of the people who come out to Pompano Wednesday night will wind up owning co-owning a horse, a harness horse. And the way it works is Saturday night, the 8th, there's going to be a WIOD race. That's a week from this Saturday. The winner of that race will be the WIOD horse, and the group of people, potentially, who come out Wednesday, some of them will wind up getting the earnings. The track will double the earnings of the horse at the end of the meeting, and they'll split it up. And the way they'll do that is that every time the horse runs, these people, our folks, bring that clubhouse pass out. They get in for nothing. And the people who come out the most nights when the horse runs, let's say the horse runs 15 times between now and April when Pompano closes. You come out all 15 times, you're guaranteed that you're going to be one of the people who will share. So if like 100 people come all 15 times, those 100 people will be the ones who split up the horse's earnings, which isn't probably going to amount to jillions of dollars. This isn't going to be a way to get rich, but the people will have some perks at the track. They'll be able to come out. They'll get in free on the nights that the horse runs. They'll be able to go in the winner's circle. And they did it up at the Meadowlands. It was very, very successful. It's a fun thing.
You remember they used to give away the horse at Gulfstream?
Right.
That was some promotion.
Yeah.
It gets people involved.
And this is another way to get them involved.
I always felt that the tracks where they fail in promotions is they don't promote the product they have.
Right.
You know, you give away free hot dogs. That's not saying anything about
No, but again, what I said to them when they were here, and I told that to Kenny Dunn yesterday, and I had to tip my hat to him. He's really made some incredible improvements in a short period of time. And you know how I feel about Calder, you know. And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to kiss anybody's butt, but he's really making an effort to change the PR, which has been horrible out there, and to give the people more information. The program is new. I said to him, where's the late double out here? I said, that's one of the stupidest things. He says, hey, look on the program date, starting with Tropical at Calder, we brought it back.
I don't like it.
Oh, hey, listen.
No, I'll tell you what I don't like.
For you big plungers, you don't like it, but for the average gambler out there, the average bettor, that's what I'm talking about, the late double.
They missed the boat. I'm telling you. They cut back the second triple.
Is handy on a half mile, and then days we didn't even have.
And I think Cardigan Bay beat him, and Chris Boring, the True Dwayne, I think beat him.
That's exactly right, out in California. Right. That's correct. But you see, we're lucky. This post position that we've got now, the 5-hole, and the manageability of this horse, Richie has the option. Should he elect, when that man springs the gate, to try for the top, because our colt has shown tremendous early speed and can come home with tremendous closing speed. Should he elect to do that, he has that option. Should he elect to say, I'd like to get the trip that Art's Place got against us in the Governor's Cup, he could take him back and follow Art's Place wherever he wants to go. So those are the edges that a horse that can be driven by the driver rather than, as Neil said, a puller or grabbing on the bit. You can't hold him and you have to go one way. These are the advantages we have. Art's Place, we don't believe, has that real quick gate speed, but he can go a long way. He could sit on the outside of you and grind you like the Shadow. Whether that'll be John's tactics Friday night, whatever Richie's tactics are, no matter how much we discuss it, he makes the final decision when that man says go, because things happen behind the gate that all our planning and all our anticipating happens just don't happen.
What about being next to one another? Coming out of the...
Well, it makes it, a little bit more interesting because...
right.
Excuse
me. Because you can tell where my background is, whatever it is. But what is it? How does that affect it?
Well, it affects it just because John's, we're going to be the two favorites probably in the race, and John's going to be looking at me, and I'm going to be looking at him to see what each other's going to be doing. And, in the last events that we've raced, I've been on the inside of John, and this will be the first time I'll be on the outside of him.
No, at Rosecross you were on the outside. The eliminations for the
presidential. The eliminations for the presidential, right.
Yep. So how did that, what happened there?
John went to the front, and then I cleared him going to the 3/8 pole. So he wound up getting, in behind me.
Yeah. Yeah, he was out of the 5, you were out of the 6,
right.
Looking at the program, and you beat him a length in 54-2.
That's right.
Again, on a 5/8 mile track.
And it was very cold, that night, too.
At Rosecross. It seems like, as we're talking, it's a 2-horse race. It's not really...
Yeah, that was my next question, but I got to take a break here. Because at this rate, why not? We've got commercials.
You want that $9 trifecta, right? You want the third horse.
I'm waiting. We'll be right back.
Hear Bob Soper's weather forecast direct from the 610 WIOD Weather Center each weekday morning on the Mike Ranieri Show. Now, back to Hank Goldberg on News Talk Radio, 610 WIOD.
All right, I'm here with Neil, and we're talking harness racing. and we're talking with the Silvermans, who are going to be here for about another half hour. Jerry and Richard. Richard's the driver, and Jerry, I guess you're the father and the trainer, right?
Well, we both trained him, but yep, that's the relation.
Before we get into that, let's complete the trifecta, as Neil suggested before we took the break.
Can I take a shot at it? It doesn't take a genius to figure out, although you may disagree. I think that the horse Bill Fahey's got, Tudor Scooter, is a rapidly improving direct scooter colt, and I don't think anybody has any idea how good this colt is. Is that...
Why start laughing?
And maybe Arts Place has an idea. No, I'm not saying to win it, but I'm saying he could be close.
Well, I agree. But I think there's a colt in there that Arts Place and I are 1-2. Third that I think should be considered a stand and deliver.
Bill Gale.
Who has post 3, I believe. And he was very competitive against Arts Place up in Canada in the $1 million race and the eliminations, who just got beat a nose. He got interfered with in the final of the Governor's Cup in that action. I think with the inside, he'll be very competitive. And Tudor Scooter could be right there also. And the horse that has the real Sable Vision has a shot is pretty... It's a really good bunch of colts. And I think a lot has to depend on the way the race pans out.
Is it, Neil, is this one big race, or is this, or they have several races this Friday again? Is it?
No, there are 4.
We have 4.
There are 2. They're all 2. These are the 2-year-olds. We have the boys and the girls in the trotters, and the boys and the girls in the pacers. So you have 4. But the thing of it is, I mean, you had 8 the other night with about $3 million in purses. Here, these 4 races alone have almost $2 million in purses.
So even though it isn't as many, see the day when you have this kind of money available.
Incredible. It's incredible. For a 2-year-old now to win $1.1 million like our colt has done. And there's another colt Arts Place got $800,000. I mean, it's incredible the money that's being given now. And here you got the Breeders' Crown going for you, and it's at the end of the season. So this is just a great factor for...
There are a lot of people right now who think that the Breeders' Cup is in trouble for a lot of reasons. One, not just the incidents that occurred, at Belmont a few weeks ago, but it's really changed the nature of the thoroughbred business. For example, it's created a second season, if you will, for thoroughbred racing, where now they start racing in February or whatever, and if they don't lay them off, which you generally don't because there's so much money out there unless they get hurt, they run a long, like Go for Juan. Go for Juan had a very competitive campaign. She had to beat Sharon. She ran, she was challenged a couple of times. It was not an easy year for her. A friend of mine who's a clocker in California swears that when he saw Go for Juan come out on the track Thursday morning before the race, he said, "Who is that?" She looked so sore to him. And here's a guy who, watches horses work out every morning. It's his business. Everybody talked about the track, and I'm going to wonder if maybe that wasn't a cop-out for a couple of people who raced horses who perhaps were extended a little more than they should have. What about in your game? They seem to be able to race with more frequency, with less of a problem, say, than the thoroughbreds do.
Well, first of all, in reference to Go for One, it seems very inconceivable to me that they would race a world champion like that filly if she came onto the track sore. And the funny part of it is that, like you said, a friend of yours that's a clocker, these people are pretty shrewd and astute people. They're out there early in the morning.
Frisky. They almost killed that horse trying to get the Triple Crown.
With throat infections and et cetera, et cetera. But it's not the rule. Those are really the exceptions. Usually, when you've got an animal worth that kind of money, they usually would scratch him even if it's a big race like that and not take a chance on racing him. In reference to the Belmont track that day, I don't put much credence in that. I believe that's just talk as far as that have anything to do with it. But what you said may have a lot of credence that if this mare was not sound.
But the timing of the whole thing, to have the Breeders' Cup at the end of the year, especially thoroughbreds, which are so much more fragile than standard
that's correct.
And to have it at that time of the year after the horse has gone a rough campaign, that's brutal. I mean, standard breds, again, like you say, to do it at this time of the year is remarkable, but they're so much more durable. In fact, another example, I mean, you see big stake races where you have several heats or 3 heats, Little Brown Jug, Hamiltonian with the harness racing. Can you imagine a thoroughbred having to run twice even on the same day? It's inconceivable. It could never happen.
Right.
And we can race 3 times.
I've got a couple of calls. You guys don't mind if I take them, do you? Dave, hello.
Yeah, Hank.
Yeah.
Listen, I just want to know, I know harness racing is part of the pari-mutuel system here in Florida, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, it was the last time I looked.
Yeah, I mean...
Van Jones and his posse, they look over that game, too. But fortunately, we're having a new governor, and so that'll be by the boards.
Why do you say we're having a new governor, fortunately? I mean...
Fortunately, that pari-mutuel commission will be changed.
Right. I mean,
And fortunately, we have a new governor, if you want to get into that, too. But that's another story.
Right. Well, I don't mean to get political, but, I mean, is this harness racing really classified as a sport, or is it...
Yeah, goodbye. Let's go to Scott. Hello.
Hey, how you doing, Hank?
Okay.
You made a comment just a second ago that you think the Breeders' Cup is in trouble.
Yes.
How can you say that when a year ago at Hallandale...
I'll tell you. I'll give you a real good reason. And this is
successful.
Excuse me. You ask me a question, I'll answer you. Okay. They're in trouble with the television contract. Number one, a lot of the money that comes into that comes through their television contract with NBC, which is now very committed to other sports, and there's a very good chance that they will go without a network contract. The ratings on the Breeders' Cup this year were dreadful. By the way, I'm not telling you this off the top of my head. I know for a fact that they could wind up on ESPN.
What about a pay-per-view?
Who would pay? You don't have to have pay-per-view. Part of the problem problem with the television deal is that the people who really want to watch the Breeders' Cup are at the racetracks betting on it anyway.
Yes, sir. Right.
So, so it becomes a real unattractive proposition for the network. That's one thing. Second thing is they're having trouble finding a good venue. Gulfstream very much wants it. But Santa Anita, they had a battle over the boxes there. It's just right now at a real crisis stage. I think in the next 2 years, you'll find out if there's going to be a continuation of Breeders' Cup or not. There are a lot of horsemen right now who are very squeamish about having to run their horses in places like Kentucky, New York, November.
Big part of the lack of ratings is that you had so many horses knocked out.
Yes.
By the end of the year, that there were, other than Go for Want, I mean, how many really big names did you have that were going to run? Most of the horses that people were anticipating running,
Easy Goers,
Sunday Silence, there was no rematch, and so by the time you knock most of those horses out, where is the interest?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if we didn't have Die Laughing and Miss Easy and Beach Towel and these horses in the Breeders' Crown, the interest wouldn't be half of what it is.
It also relates back to the amount of money that the networks have spent on other things, where they're just taking an enormous bath on things like baseball and,
Hank, let me ask, Neil, do you still have the call of the race from Hallandale?
Tom Durkin?
Yeah.
I sure do.
I mean, you don't know how that puts goosebumps on many, many people just to hear that call.
I got it.
Play it right now.
Well, in a little while.
Okay.
If Hank wants. Hank's show, sir.
Well, Hank,
do it, though.
Hank,
I don't know where to find it.
I know where to find it.
Okay.
Yeah, Neil knows where it is.
Okay.
And, by the way, Hank, excellent show. I'm so glad to hear you're on. And, Neil, you got some competition.
No, he doesn't. That's not right, Why can't Neil coexist with somebody in this place,
Okay. Anyway, Hank, you yelled at me one day because I called in and I talked about Neil and you yelled at me, but get him, Neil.
Were you the guy in the toll booth?
Yeah, as a matter of fact.
I remember the call.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, see you later.
So long. Let's go to Boca. Stan, you want to talk about breeding?
Yeah, good evening. Enjoy your show.
Thanks.
Hi, Neil.
Yes, sir.
2 questions I have for your guests, Richie and Jerry. One, perhaps Neil could answer or Hank could answer. First of all, one question is, why are we pushing our 2-year-old horses in harness racing so fast that we've been doing over the past, I'd say about 10 years, when our horses really don't develop until they're late 3-year-olds? If you want to answer that, I'd have another question for you. Do you understand what I mean by pushing them?
I sure do.
Okay.
The reason is money. They're putting up tremendous amounts of money to race for as a 2-year-old, and with pedigrees, the way they're improving year in and year out, our standardbreds are getting faster and faster and faster, that most of these standardbreds peak at early 3, where they used to peak at 5. But now the money is on the line. How could you pass up a $600,000 Breeders' Crown if you got a colt that warrants it? How could you pass up a Governor's Cup for $600,000? They're both at the end of the season. So I believe it's strictly money that we're going for, and it's the job of the trainer and the driver to manage his career during his course of his 2-year-old year so that we can save him for the end of the year and then have a colt come back as a 3-year-old.
Let me throw something to you answer, though.
Well, let me just follow up that question. Do you point for this race in some way in terms of how you condition a horse and bring him along in the course of a year?
Well, after the Wilson, which is August, we gave our colt 6 weeks off with the back of our mind knowing we're going to have to go to Lexington.
So there you go.
And prep him for Pompano.
So that, I think that's your answer, too.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you. I don't know if that was Richie or Jerry.
That was Jerry.
Okay, only for the simple
You
reason.
can tell the difference because Jerry sounds older.
Jerry sounds
a lot older.
Well, not only that, he looks older. But
sure.
But my only question is with the, and I still have a question on thoroughbreds that I want to ask you, Hank. But to follow up, all our better trotters are being exported to Europe, to Sweden, Finnish connections, Italian. And they race there at 4 and 5-year-olds, and they have champions. I mean, Mac LaBelle is in stud, but he came out and won a race about a month ago. But our horses at 3 years old, we just get rid of them, or they're worn out. And
okay, in answer to that question, it's the way we've set up our purse schedules over here. If we went and gave this kind of money for a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, these kind of purses, we would then do exactly what they do in Europe, similar what they do in New Zealand and Australia. We would race our colts a couple of times for education as 2-year-olds and prep them for the rest of their lives in strenuous campaigns as 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
I guess what I'm getting to, wouldn't it be better for the sport if our horses raced 4 and 5-year-olds?
What would be better for the sport if we can get the caliber of Di Laughing and Cam Best and Arch Place to come back as 4 and 5-year-olds. You're 100% right.
But aren't they
by
breeding at that
But by that
that's
time,
where all the money is now. Years ago, you did have horses like
exactly right.
as a 4-year-old, but now there is so much money in the breeding that it's just not practical.
And overseas, they don't go for as much money as early ages as they do here.
Okay, Stan.
You know what, Hank? I got a question for you guys now.
Real quick.
Why are the thoroughbreds just remaining static at certain times, whereas the harness racing breed is improving and improving, which is absolutely phenomenal?
That's an interesting question because about 3 years ago, you wouldn't have asked us that question. But for the last 3 years, the thoroughbred breeding business has fallen off substantially.
So is harness racing.
Has that?
Oh, absolutely.
No, the only thing that's fallen off in harness racing
is
prices. But not in pedigrees and not in caliber of stallions that are going to the shed rows. In the thoroughbred game right now, they stagnated because there aren't these world champions. They're breeding 30 mares a year,
yeah, that's it.
20 mares a year. We're breeding 150, 125. And the closer you get pedigree-wise, the closer you get on the racetrack to these kind of times.
You know, part of the problem, I think, in the thoroughbred business is that the quality breeding can't keep up with the amount of racing that there is. There's so much racing now. You know, so many racetracks around the country running 12 months a year or even 10 months a year or whatever, that it's just, you just can't, it's impossible for the breeding to keep up. That's number one. Number two, where the breeding business was so lucrative a couple of years ago, suddenly the bottom fell out of that business. And it became, as purses seemed to go up around the country, except for here, as far as, you know, the stakes and handicap division is concerned, more horses started running. And Breeders' Cup, I think, had something to do with that, keeping horses around a little bit longer. It just became lucrative for them to race. It's changed. The nature of breed, that's a whole different show, and we'll get to that one night, okay?
Hank, thank you for harness form.
Okay.
Really appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye.
We'll be right back.
Ranieri here, inviting you to join us for our Thursday episode. We'll talk to Captain Bouncer after the 7:30 news about the fishing situation. In our big 9 to 10 hour, we're positively, most certainly going to have a big money secret phrase. Maybe. And we'll find out in the 8 to 9 hour who won the Fantasy 5. All we need is you, Cookie, between 5:30 and 10 on News Talk Radio 610 WIOD. Dude.
You're listening to the News, Traffic, and Weather Station. News Talk Radio 610 WIOD. Now, back to Goldberg at Night with your host, Hank Goldberg, on 610 WIOD.
He's winning 45 to 38 at the half. Gee,
wow. Bulletin.
Well, if there were seats, you could all go down to the arena and maybe see something special happening. But, hey, there's another half to go. We're talking harness racing for the next few minutes, and I want to ask the Silverman family, first of all, Jerry, how did you get into the business? And the second part of the question is the legacy. And Richie just followed into it, or did you encourage him, or what?
Well, as far as Richie's concerned, I surely encourage them because I enjoy working with him, and it's 7 years now he's been in it, and I just loved it. But just a father-son relationship, we've had a great relationship all the time. And when I saw an interest, and when I saw this is what he wanted to do and liked to do, it was 100% game for it.
How long have you been in it?
30 years.
And so you, as a kid, just started hanging around out there?
Yeah, I used to go out, and Dad used to put me on his lap and take me around and stuff, and it just seemed to get in my blood. And, you know, I just love being around horses, and I felt that when I used to go around and start jogging and training, that I just felt really comfortable out there on the racetrack, and I pursued it.
So you started out working them out? And then...
Yeah, and grooming. I groomed for 2 years before I ever got to train a horse, really.
So you really worked every facet of the preparation.
Yeah, which I think is very important because you always have to learn the bottom up.
The great thing about harness racing, though, and people that don't know anything about this sport, it's one thing that really gets you involved is that it is a family sport.
Yeah.
And all through the years, there've been all the Dancer family, all the brothers, and up in Michigan, the Houghtons, and you go up in Michigan, we had the Niles family, and all the Borings. And that's one of the great things of it. It keeps like a continuity of the sport, and it goes from one generation to another. It's just terrific.
See, I want to see a Silverman family win the Jockey Club Gold Cup, so they can walk into the director's room at Belmont, and I can watch Ogden Phipps polish.
Well, I got a 4-year-old boy. He's going to be 4 December 19th, so I'll have to groom him now for the Jockey Gold Cup.
That's what I want to see. I was hoping when Cycone and Cumble and those guys had Wolfie's Rascal, somehow that horse could rise to the occasion and do that, but no, it didn't happen. So anyway, you've been in this 30 years. As a trainer strictly? Or?
Correct. I drove a little bit, never found much enjoyment, never found much talent myself as a driver. I just really appreciate training these young horses, colts, and trying to develop them.
Did you know that Richie had something when he was, even as a kid, you could see it?
I knew the one thing he did he had a great pair of hands.
Yeah.
And I knew hanging around the barn and being as dedicated as he was, rubbing and sweating, that he'd cultivate a head. And that's what you need.
You know, Richie, last week Randy Romero was here, and we were talking. Of course, he rode Go for One, and it really was a tragic thing. But in talking with him, he loves the game, number one, and loves horses. Right. I mean, he grew up on a farm, and in fact, they made a movie about his family. They grew up, they were Cajuns, they grew up in Louisiana. His role models were people like Eddie De La Houssaye, and, he was maybe a little older than DeSormo, but they were all basically contemporaries. But his love for, I imagine, and this is a pretty trite question, I guess, but if you don't love horses, really have a passion for them,
you really shouldn't be in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to, really love what you do. I believe in, and in this business, you're lucky enough to look forward to going to the barn in the morning, as your job, and training them and developing them, and I think it's a very important thing.
One of the shortfalls in promoting both thoroughbred and harness racing is that there really isn't enough that's told to the public about the personalities, the jockeys and the drivers, because they are so important. I mean, it just makes so much difference when a guy really knows what he's doing behind a horse or riding a horse. I mean, just dramatic. And baseball, you follow football, you know these guys. You know all about them, where they went to school, what they look like, where they grew up. Except for a Cordero or a few other guys, or maybe the Houghtons and Dancers of harness racing, or John Campbell, of course. Most people don't get really very much information on it. I think it's a bad mistake. I think there needs to be a lot more done about that.
Yeah.
Why? In our game, Hank, it's such, as Neil said, a family game. Owners come. They themselves, their kids get right up on these colts, sit on the jock cot, and before you know it, after the trainer takes them around once, so they get the feel, they're out jogging these colts. You know what a feeling it is for them to come and see their own horse and come out there and bring them carrots, get up, down. You can't do that with the thoroughbred.
7.
Yeah. And you got out of it?
It was a nice, expensive experience.
Yeah.
I didn't have any die laughing, but it was a lot of fun.
Would you do it again?
No. I might do it again. I shouldn't say that. I might do it again because I'm a lot wiser and older now, and I know what it's all about.
Were you on your own, Neil, or did you have partners?
I had one partner. These are all claimers. I mean, they were nothing all exceptional, $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 claiming horses, but it was a lot of fun, and we won several races. It's a big thrill to go in that winner's circle and get your picture taken.
It is. I know. I was in a syndicate a few years ago where we had like 4 horses, I guess, and after 4 months, I was even and got out. I said, I don't think that I want to do this over the long haul.
The first race I ever won was with a claiming horse called Comet Scott. who was a nice horse. He was always trying, always closing. And Shelley Goodrow, the late Shelley Goodrow, who was one of the great drivers, I think would have been one of the greatest ever, tremendous pair of hands, won the race. I think the horse paid $20. Now, we run down to the winner's circle, and I'm standing there, and from the owner's box, a friend of mine yells down as we're waiting for the horse to come back, "Neil, what's the objection?" And my heart just, there was no objection, but I mean, just the idea that there was an objection up on the board, my heart just jumped.
Well, how would it feel if you won the $1 million race and there was an objection? And that's what happened to Guy Laughing this year in the Woodrow Wilson.
Right, and what
Did
happened?
you believe that?
They left me up, but...
what happened in the race?
Well, leaving the gate, just the horse inside of me, which was Razzle Dazzle, and we just came a little close leaving the gate, and I guess from the judge's point of view, they just wanted to see it over again. So my number was blinking for around 5 minutes, and I was a little upset.
Was your heart in your mouth, too?
His and a lot of other people's. Yeah. I mean, Hank, we won it by the width of a whisker.
Yeah.
We won the race coming from ninth. And then after the number goes up that you won it, the Woodrow Wilson.
It starts blinking.
And then you start
only
seeing
$1 million
race.
Yeah.
Right, so.
You start to wonder.
Funny thing is, I watch a race
Did you
pretty
know
good.
you were okay?
Yes, I really did. You know, the judges at the Meadowlands are very, very funny, so you always have in doubt. But I knew I didn't impede him at all, the horse inside of me, so I wasn't too worried. But still, I was concerned.
A real challenge driving up there at the Meadowlands. You got, I mean, the best in the world driving right there. You got Campbell and Moiseyev and Manzi and Bill O'Donnell and LaChance.
Toughest league
I mean,
in the
that
world.
is really some kind of a challenge driving with those
It
guys.
is.
And what about you? What were you doing while that number was
Well, it's a
breaking?
funny thing. I'm doing it 30 years, and I had Triple Crown winners in '66, Romeo.
Yeah.
And Billy Meyer was my driver then, and after Meyer, George Schulte. And I used to hide and close my eyes and worry then, and I do the same thing till this very day with Die Laughing.
you had
I am a
Romeo.
nervous wreck, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me.
You've had some great ones over
Oh,
there.
I've been very fortunate. Richie was second in the Hambletonian with Rule the Wind, and won the Breeders' Crown with Masquerade as a 3-year-old. So we've had our share of great horses.
Can you stay and take a couple more phone calls
Sure
for a
can.
few more minutes? Okay,
Sure.
we'll be right back. As soon as we get a few messages in, we'll come back and conclude our first hour of Goldberg at Night. Goes fast here, huh?
Join us each night for Sports Talk 610. 7 nights a week at 6. Now, back to Goldberg at Night with host Hank Goldberg on News Talk Radio, 610 WIOD.
Okay, we got a few calls to get on this hour and not that much time, so let's go to North Lauderdale. Rick, hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Okay.
Hank, several times I've heard Neil during the day talk about on his program about Jeff Gregory. How does this driver rate? I mean, does he got good hands, or I mean, he comes in quite a few winners.
I don't think the Silvermans are familiar with Jeff. I'm not trying to say that he's Stanley Dancer or that he's John Campbell, but Jeff won the racing, the driver title in upstate New York about 3-4 years in a row. Came down here last year for the first time. If you look at his percentage on the program, it's pretty low because he's got a lot of cheap stock, a lot of stock that can't compete down here. But especially on a trotter, this kid is extremely good. He's one of the up-and-coming drivers. He's going to be very, very good.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Boca and Morris. Hello.
Hey, I just want to ask you a question. How much money has young Richard earned in purses this year?
Well, together with Die Laughing?
Well, with your entire stable.
I'd have to say around $1.3 million.
I see. And a fellow like Campbell?
Well, he doesn't have his own stable. He just catch drives, so...
Oh, you don't do any catch driving?
I do minimal. I'd like to do a little more, but, in time, I hope that'll come along.
I'd like to ask one more question. The people that own this horse, who are they? Family?
No. They're owners of... half of them, there are two owners on this, the Chasnoffs and Marty Granoff. Marty Granoff is Valdor Farms. They've been an owner of mine for 7 years.
And how many horses have they had to buy or own all these years to get one like this?
Well, the Chasnoffs, this is the only horse that I'm training for them prior to this year now. They own a half of them. That's the only horse I've ever trained for them.
What about the other fellow?
And Granoff, he's trained a number of horses for 7 years, but he has had Masquerade, who won the Breeders' Crown. He's had Shocking Secret,
So
filly
there's quite
that's
an
won.
investment in these things before
Oh,
you...
it's very
How much
expensive.
does it cost to get in? I'll ask you,
like,
Neil.
like, how does your stable charge by the day?
I charge myself $48.50 a day.
And
that covers the groom and feed and the workman's comp, etc., etc. The average horse would run around $22,000 a year to train. A stake horse where you're going into stake payments and things like that can skyrocket to any figures, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for the year.
Are you interested?
Oh, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot ball.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Well,
You'll probably do
the best
something
way
smart,
for somebody
like buy a restaurant.
The best, yeah, right. Best way for somebody to get into it, friend, maybe you disagree, but is to buy a claiming horse that's already racing.
Mm-hmm.